Hello. For today, I'm going to be showing you how to make medieval socks for ladies known as hose or hosen. Now, this one I made for my daughter, and as you can see with the medieval pattern, it's pretty blocky, not really form-fitting. You don't see the form-fitting socks or hosen until about the 15th or the 16th centuries, which goes along with the rest of the clothing. In the earlier centuries, clothing tended to be more square-shaped, and then as you get into the later centuries, they become more form-fitting. Now, the colors that were used, the most popular ones were red, black, blue, and brown. As far as material, typically wool would have been used on the outside and lined with linen. For today's project, I'm actually just going to be making linen socks. Now, for this specific pattern, let me try to zoom in there. As you can see, there are two pieces. You've got the leg portion, and then you've got the front half of the foot portion. Now the problem with that, if I turn the other sock inside out, this is the underneath of the sock. And as you can see, there are two seams going right across the underneath of the foot, and that can get painful after a while when walking on it. So for today's pattern, I'm going to be showing how to do the bottom part as one piece, and then this top part, and then the leg part. So it's going to be a three-piece sock. Let's get started. Now for this first part, you'll want to take a piece of paper and put your foot on top of the paper, and then just do an outline of your foot. You want to give yourself a little bit of space on either side of the foot for seam allowance. Now for the next part, you'll want to measure from the front of your leg down past your toes and give yourself a seam allowance. Then you'll want to measure across the widest part of your foot from the bottom of the floor to the other side by the floor. And again, give yourself some seam allowance. You'll also want to measure from the bottom of your foot to the top of your foot. And then finally, measure from the bottom of your foot to just above your knee. The hosen will actually be gartered around the underneath of the knee. Now one final measurement you want to measure around the widest part of your leg. And again, allow for some seam allowance. Now to make my pattern, I'm going to be using some scrap fabric. And so first, I'm going to fold it over because I need a little over 7 inches. Now I need half of my calf, and so now I'm going to measure that for the length of the fabric. Now with this, the fold is going to be on the front of the leg, and the two edges will be the seam on the back of the leg. Now it's time to cut out the section right above the foot. Now to help explain the measurements for the next part, this part right here would be the bottom of the foot, and this is the top of the foot. So imagine this paper would be right here, and then this dotted line would be this edge. So now I'm going to measure from this edge to this line, and I'm going to move that over here. And mark my spot. And then you want to lay your pattern down. Pin it in place. And now for the part to go over top of the foot, you want to fold your fabric over in half. And now first you'll want to measure the length of the foot from the front of your leg to past your toes. And that's going to be this measurement here right along the fold. And then this measurement over here, because as you can see my fabric is oddly shaped, I want this one to be the wider side, and I'm going to be creating an arc. So if you remember the measurement of going around the ball of your foot from the floor up around the foot to the other side, that measurement goes here. Now since you did the measurement from one side to the other, you need to divide it in half. Now to give you a visual of what this will look like, here's the bottom of the foot, and then this piece goes here. Now, as you pin things together, and if you find things don't match up quite right, like right here I've got an excess of fabric right there. The beauty of using scrap fabric is that you can put it on your foot, test out where you need to adjust what, and then fix it. So here I'm trying out my foot around the toes, everything fits perfectly. Right here by my ankles, like I said, I've got some extra fabric. I'm pinning the fabric up along my legs. Okay, so here where I've got the red pins, this tells me I've got an excess of fabric right there. I've got it on both sides that I need to trim down. And then I fitted the pattern here to fit my leg. So now we'll see if I can get my leg in and out. And there we go. Now that my patterns have been cut out and fixed, I'm going to transfer them onto my fabric. Now that all of my pieces are cut out, one important thing to remember is that since this is form-fitting to the foot, you'll want to make one for the right foot and then flip the other one over and make one for the left foot. Now, depending on if you are machine sewing or hand sewing, what you may want to do first is lay out your leg, and here's the top of the foot. And if you're machine sewing, first you'll want to sew this seam that goes right along where the top of the foot meets the ankle. The order that these items will be stitched together: first, the top of the foot will get stitched to the leg. Then once you're done with that, then you'll want to sew the back seam that goes along the leg, which may seem odd because you'll still have the underneath part of the foot open. But once the seam around the top of the foot and then the back seam are done, then what you will do is lay out your foot and then put this on top of it and then pin along and then sew. And then your last seam will be the top seam right along the leg, right along the knee. And that will be your fourth and final seam. So, top of the foot, back of the leg, around the foot, and then below the knee. And now, my hose are complete. Now, if you're wondering what to use to hold up your hose, one option would be to use strips of fabric. Just when you put the hose on, tie this right beneath the knee and then roll the fabric down on the hose. Another option would be to use leather garters, or you can also use woven bands. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask and subscribe.